So before we proceed, let us have the definition of terms. This is just a review. When we say energy, it is the ability to do work. So hindi ka makakapag-work kapag wala kang energy. Okay, so it appears in many forms. So what are the different forms of energy? Meron tayong chemical energy, electrical energy, mechanical energy, what else? Nuclear, solar or radiant, sound, thermal. Yeah, so there are different forms of energy. And these forms can be changed from one form to another. Let's start with potential versus kinetic energy. What is the difference between potential and kinetic energy? So if you are, for example, sitting while listening to me, tapos ang ginagawa nyo ay ginagalaw nyo yung mga katawan nyo, nililikot-likot nyo yung mga kamay nyo or yung ulo nyo, kumikembot-kembot kayo habang nakaupo. The question is, do you have potential or kinetic energy? Kinetic. Bakit kinetic, Renz? Kinetic daw, sabi ni Andrea. Moving daw kasi. Moving feet. Andrea, bakit kinetic? Moving din po, ma'am. Look, dapat po may speed. So, potential. Sabi ni Seth, potential daw. Bakit potential, Seth?
Try ko lang po ma'am kung tama yung anak ko ma'am. Kasi po yung potential energy po sabi dito is nakaano siya sa position niya. Kung nakaupo lang po tayo and gumagalaw tayo, walang movement sa position po natin. Kaya yung energy po natin na store po sa dun sa position lang na kung nasaan tayo.
So, how are potential, kinetic, and mechanical energy related in these figures? Okay? So, as you can see, dito sa figure natin, yung bola hawak ng bata. So, yung bola hawak ng bata, no, na nalalaglag. So, what can you say about the potential energy of the ball at this position, yung pinaka-initial position niya, and the potential energy as it reaches the bottom? And ito naman, yung nasa second figure, okay? Notice the amount of potential energy and the kinetic energy of the pendulum. So, itong pendulum, ano yan, nakahang yan, it is suspended. Tapos, it swings from side to side. Okay, so notice how the potential and kinetic energy changes as it changes the position. So, example lang natin to ha. I-straight lang natin siya kaya para kunyari nalalaglag. Katulad nung kanina, yung sa ball. Okay, so ang kailangan nyo tignan dito is the kinetic energy. Ito po. Kinetic, potential, at saka yung total. Huwag nyo nang papansinin yung thermal. Hindi natin kailangan yung thermal ha. So, kinetic, potential, tsaka total lang. So, when we see total, this is the total mechanical energy of the system. So, anong pwede gusto nyong gamitin? Si ate girl, yung boy, yung girl na ito, or yung aso. Aso na lang. Para ano, animal cruelty. Charot. Ayan. Wait lang. Ay, pwede naman pala. Sige, teka lang. Ayan. So, if, for example, yung object natin is this dog. Okay? So, notice the potential energy of the dog. What can you say?
Madami po ma'am yung potential energy ma'am, puno po.
Okay, so the potential energy is puno. And what can you say about the total energy in this system?
Puno rin po.
Puno rin. So the potential energy is equal to the total energy, di ba?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Okay, so notice what happens as we let the dog fall down. Okay? Isa pa. Okay, so notice what happens to the potential energy and the kinetic and the total energy after we release the dog down. Okay? What happened?
Ma'am, sugitan po. Nawala na po yung potential energy, ma'am.
Kailan nawala ang potential energy niya?
Ma'am,
Habang
Bergado.
nahuhulog po, ma'am, yung aso. Ay,
Pag
sorry.
nahuhulog yung aso. Bergado.
Ma'am, Nung nag-fall na po yung yung dog po sa ground, wala po yung potential energy niya. Tapos yung kinetic energy po nag-increase when the dog is falling down the ground.
How about the total energy? What happened to the total energy?
Ma'am, ulaso
Ma'am?
po.
Yes, Olazo.
Yung potential energy po, nung nag-full po siya nun, tas nag-equal din, nung hinulog niya na po yung aso, nag-equal po yung kinetic and total po. Nag-full
Okay. Habang nalalaglag yung dog, what can you say about the total energy?
Ma'am, Bergado po.
Okay.
The total energy did not change.
Okay, the total energy did not change. Ulitin natin, slow mo. Okay? Ayan. Tama yung sinabi ni Luke, the total energy did not change. Bakit sa tingin nyo hindi nagbago yung total energy natin?
Ma'am, kasi po, for example po, ma'am, yung potential energy niya is 100% po, ma'am. Tapos yung total niya rin is 100%. So, habang nahuhulog po yung aso, habang bumababa po yung potential energy niya, tumataas naman po kasabay niya yung kinetic energy niya po. Kaya pag pinag-add pa rin po sila, 100% pa rin po yung total energy.
Okay, so tama yung sinabi ni Seth na habang nababawasan yung potential energy, unti-unti namang nadadagdagan yung ating kinetic energy. Therefore, the total energy na meron tayo does not change. Kasi pag inad natin ang kinetic at potential, we will get the total mechanical energy of that system. Notice, pagdating dito sa middle, nasa kalagitnaan na tayo ng ating, ulitin ko lang. And pag nasa middle na yung ating object or yung ating dog, what happens?
Nag-equal, ma'am.
Okay, so as you can see, hindi man masyadong visible dito sa ating simulation, the amount of kinetic energy is equal to the amount of potential energy. So pagdating niya sa middle, nabawasan ng kalahati si potential, nadagdagan ng kalahati si kinetic. Okay, so half of kinetic plus half of potential, we will get the total amount of energy na pareho lang. So, yung green na bar will be the kinetic energy. Then, yung blue na bar dito sa left side will be your potential energy. Then, hindi nyo napapansinin yung red, no? Kasi yan, thermal energy yun. So, total na lang. Kinetic, potential, tsaka yung total lang yung titignan natin. So, let us place this pendulum at its maximum height. Ito yung pwedeng maximum na ilalagay natin. So, notice the amount of potential energy at this position. Okay? So, what can you say about the potential energy?
Ma'am,
At the
set po,
maximum potential energy po.
Ano po? Sorry?
Mataas yung potential energy, ma'am.
Okay, the potential energy is at its maximum. Mataas yung kanyang potential energy and still equal to the total energy in this system. Okay, notice what happens kapag nag-move na yung ating pendulum.
Ma'am, sugitan po.
Sige, sugitan.
Ma'am, pag yung kana sa maximum height po niya, ma'am, full amount po siya, ma'am. Tapos while
Ano yung full amount?
yung potential energy po, ma'am.
Okay.
Then while pababa po siya, ma'am, yung kinetic energy naman po yung nagkakaroon ng amount, ma'am.
Sige. Other answers.
set
Teka,
po,
papagalan ko lang para hindi na kayo mahilo. Slow. Ayan.
yung pag yung simula po siya na nasa itaas, full po yung potential energy niya, ma'am. Tapos nung gumalaw na po siya hanggang pababa po, nalipat naman po yung energy niya sa kinetic and naging full rin yung kinetic niya. Tapos nung pumunta na po siya sa pinaka pinaka-right po, nag-change direction na po yung, ang tawag dito, pendulum. Tapos, ano po siya ng sandali dun sa pinaka-right. Nag-stop po siya. Kaya napuno ulit yung potential energy na. Tapos, nung nag-swing back po ulit siya, nalipat na naman ulit sa kinetic.
Okay, sige. Any other observations that you want to share?
Regado, ma'am.
Sige po, look.
Same lang siya sa first simulation, ma'am. Wala pong pinagkaiba.
Okay. What can you say about the total energy? Does the total amount of energy change?
Hindi po, ma'am.
Hindi po. Hindi nagbago yung total amount ng ating energy. Pero, pinapakita doon kung ilan yung amount ng ilan yung amount ng kinetic at nung potential niya. So, at this point, at this position where the position of the pendulum is highest, no? As you can see, the potential energy is maximum as well. However, the amount of kinetic energy has become 0. Tama?
Yes,
Opo, ma'am.
Okay. So, as it goes down, habang bumababa yung ating pendulum, unti-unting nababawasan ulit yung ating potential energy and the amount of kinetic energy adds up. So, ito yung energy yung kinetic natin, yung green. Tapos, as you can see dun sa equal energy natin, sa total energy natin, andun yung amount ng kinetic energy equal dun sa pinapakita sa left side ng ating bar graph. So, kinetic na green plus yung blue na potential, yun yung ating total. So, equal pa din, hindi magbabago yung mechanical energy natin. So, as it reaches this part, what can you say?
Equal na po yung potential and kinetic.
Okay, so the amount of kinetic energy is equal to the amount of potential energy. And by the time it reaches the bottom at 0 degrees, ayan, so the amount of kinetic energy is now at its maximum. Diba? Yung 100% of the potential energy has been transformed into the kinetic energy. Okay? Dahil din sa position ng object, nasa baba na siya, and the object is also moving, kaya naging kinetic energy na siya. So, wala na tayong potential. And as it goes back again to its original position, nadadagdagan na yung ating potential, nababawasan yung kinetic, still, the total amount of energy is the same. Pagdating ulit dito sa part na to, mag-i-equal ulit si potential at si kinetic. So, how are the potential, kinetic, and mechanical energies related? Okay? So, a mechanical energy is the sum of potential and kinetic energy. So, when you add potential plus kinetic, you will get the total mechanical energy. So, yun yung nakita nating last na bar kanina dun sa simulation natin. So, in a system, if the kinetic energy is high, okay, the potential energy is low. At this position, so this is for example, a cliff. Ayan. So, ito yung puno. With reference to the ground, the potential energy of this tree is maximum. Ibig sabihin, kung ano yung pwede niyang ma-reach na potential energy, yun siya. However, if the potential energy is maximum, then your kinetic energy must be 0. Kapag ang isang tao ay nalaglag doon sa baba, what happens? What happens to the potential energy? Okay, habang nalalaglag siya, the potential energy, sige.
Yung kinetic energy, ma'am, magpa-max po, and yung potential energy mag-0 po.
So the potential energy will be reduced. Nababawasan si potential energy at nadadagdagan naman ng unti-unti si kinetic energy. As it reaches to this point, the potential energy now will become equal to the amount of kinetic energy. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I hope
Opo.
that makes sense, no? Yan. So, kinetic energy here is equal to the potential. And as it reaches the bottom, ditong part na to, the potential energy has been reduced fully, therefore it will become zero, and the kinetic energy is the opposite, which becomes the maximum. Alright? And if the kinetic energy is low, the potential energy is high. The higher you get, the higher the potential energy you will have, di ba? Yung tao na merong pinakamataas na potential energy, yung tao sa taas ng Mount Everest. Kasi the Mount Everest is the highest point on Earth, di ba? So kapag nandun ka, you will have the highest potential energy among all people on Earth. Mas mataas yung lugar mo, mas mataas yung potential energy mo. At mas zero yung kinetic energy. Kapag naman nasa baba ka, nasa bottom part ka, you will have the highest kinetic energy. Okay? So yan, so ito yung pinakita ko sa inyo kanina. So when we say potential energy, it is the energy stored of an object, or also known as the energy at rest. And there are different types of potential energy. We have the gravitational, the elastic potential, and many more. But for now, we will be focusing on the gravitational potential energy lang. So when we say gravitational potential energy, it relies upon the mass and the position of the object from the ground. So remember these two things, you should have the mass and the position. And when we say position, that is your distance from the ground. And it is written in equation as PE is equal to mgh, wherein PE is your potential energy measured in joules. Your acceleration due to gravity, letter G, is negative 9.8 meters per square second. M is for the mass in kilograms. H is for the height or position of the object. So kung wala kang position, kung wala kang displacement from the ground, wala kang potential energy. Nagigets ba ako? Next, let's have the kinetic energy. And when we say kinetic energy, it is the energy possessed by a moving object. So anything na gumagalaw, it should have kinetic energy. And its magnitude is dependent on two variables as well. We have the mass and the speed. So kailangan meron kang mass, meron kang speed para magkaroon ng kinetic energy. That is why in the simulations that I have shown you a while ago, nagkakaroon ng kinetic energy yung bola habang nalalaglag kasi meron siyang speed. Okay? Pati na rin yung pendulum na umaandar pababa, nagkakaroon siya ng kinetic energy kasi nagsimula siya from rest and nagkaroon ng motion. So it is written in equations as KE equals mv squared over 2, wherein KE is your kinetic energy measured in joules. M is for the mass, measured in kilograms, and V is for the speed, measured in meters per second. Okay? So, yung tanong ko kanina, kung nakaupo ba kayo at nagagalaw-galaw kayo ng kamay mo, do you have potential or kinetic? The answer is, you have potential energy. Gumagalaw ka dyan, kahit pa magpapawis ka ng kakagalaw dyan, basta nakaupo ka lang, hindi ka magkakaroon ng kinetic energy unless nag-move ka from one place to another or nagkaroon ka ng speed. So if you're just sitting down and moving whatever you do, doing whatever you want, you still have the potential energy at wala kang kinetic energy. So by definition, again, mechanical energy is equal to the sum of the potential and kinetic energy. So PE plus KE is ME. Okay, we can also say that ME or mechanical energy is equal to mgh plus mv squared over 2. Paano natin nakuha itong equation na to? Saan galing yan?
Combined equation po ng kinetic energy and potential energy.
Okay, very good. So since potential energy is equal to mgh and kinetic energy is equal to mv squared over 2, so for the detailed equation of mechanical energy, we have ME is equal to mgh plus mv squared over 2. Proceed na tayo sa law of conservation of energy. Pag sinabi nating law of conservation of energy, In an enclosed system, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only be converted from one form to another. One form of energy, thus the total amount of energy is constant. So, ang energy, hindi mo pwedeng gawin, hindi mo pwedeng sirain. Ang mangyayari lang sa kanya ay pwede lang siyang mag-transform from one energy to another form of energy. So, yung total amount ninyo ay constant or hindi nagbabago. Okay? So, the law of conservation of energy is essential in situations involving mechanical energy. So, it means that whenever the mechanical energy is converted from one form to another, pag nag-convert daw tayo ng potential to kinetic or kinetic to potential, yung total energy natin sa umpisa, MEI must be equal daw to the total energy at the end of the process. So, MEI is equal to MEF. So, initial mechanical is equal to the final mechanical energy. So, that will be MEI is equal to MEF. Or, since ME is equal to potential energy plus kinetic energy, that will be PEI plus KEI is equal to PEF plus KEF. Then, PEI is equal to MGH, so that will be MGHI plus KEI, which is MV squared I over 2 equals PEF MGHF plus MV squared F over 2. And so this is the equation for the law of conservation of energy. MGHI plus MV squared I over 2 is equal to MGHF plus MV squared F over 2. Ibig sabihin, this is the initial mechanical energy and it should be equal to the final mechanical energy.